Israel displays the weapons intercepted aboard the KLOS-C as this chapter of the covert war between Jerusalem and Tehran comes to an end. Amnesty International publishes a shocking report accusing the Syrian regime of perpetrating crimes against humanity against civilians in the Palestinian refugee camp of Yarmouk. And the search for Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 continues as the mystery grows. Welcome back to the news today. This is the Daily Debate. The climax of the ordeal came today, 5 days after Israel announced that it has captured a ship loaded with long-range missiles from Iran destined to the Gaza Strip. The main goals of the Israeli-public retaliation relations was to expose the real face of Iran while Iran is in the midst of the nuclear negotiations. Today, we will try to understand, did the Israeli public relations done a good job, and if 5 days of media blitz is not too much. And joining me right now, I want to welcome Calev Myers. Thank you very much for coming to our studio, and Mr. Raanan Gissin, Dr. Raanan Gissin, for coming to our studio. Thank you very much for coming. So, exaggerating a little bit too much?
Is it exaggerating to do a media blitz on behalf of Israel?
You tell me.
That's a good question.
1 day, yes. 2 days, I can accept like 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, maybe. But God,
I think it depends what media blitz
much?
you're doing. In my opinion, Israel's public relations is not in a good situation, particularly in the younger generation. And I'm very concerned about what's happening today in academia, particularly. Even though you don't have hundreds of academic institutions around the world that are officially boycotting Israel, you do have hundreds of student groups, which means that Israel's message is not reaching the 20 and 30-year-old generation. And those are going to be the leaders and decision makers of tomorrow.
Why is that?
I think it's because not enough thought is going into our public relations in order to intentionally reach this crowd. I think the Palestinians do a much better job. We have some inherent weaknesses within our culture that I think that we need to do away with in order to do a better job of public relations. First of all, we're not willing to admit our weaknesses and vulnerabilities, our fears. The older generation, the Zionistic generation that established Israel, wants to show that we're strong. And we are strong, but we also have fears. And the Palestinians have convinced the world that they're vulnerable, that they're weak, that they're poor, and Israel is this strong, dominant force which is abusing their rights. And so I think we could do a better job at that. I also think that the Palestinians come with black and white messages that are very concise. Israel is an apartheid, Zionism is racism, the Israeli government is occupying us, and so on and so forth. Whereas we respond to those concise accusations by writing 2,000-page books and very complicated, or we try to prove, or we go in this direction of, well, Israel is a great technological state. Look at all these breakthroughs the world has done, and that just makes people hate us more.
Dr. Gissin, does this makes people hate us more, or is it maybe, like I said at the beginning, maybe it's a little bit too much?
Israel suffers today a disadvantage in the campaign against the public relations, That's for sure. And that's the reason why we had to do something to change the image of the world, what the world sees. And that, of course, the capture of the ship and whatever is another story. It's a new story. It's like a thing that we're using now to show to change a little bit what the image of Israel is around the world, and that indeed is what the purpose of showing the.
But do you think that this is actually changing the perception of Israel around the world? Because when we are seeing that these footage are just repeating themselves again and again and again, even the Israeli media. I talked today with some reporters, and they told me, Lucy, back then there was some kind of being humble about the things that you do. Israel was humble about the things that it did, and it managed to actually show what it's doing outside. Now, everything needs to be big. Everything needs to be with big PR, with big press conferences, to show the world that we have the power.
Well, you had to do something because to change the reality that you see on the news, where the other side shows the PR is the best thing. The best thing that you can do is try and expose the truth. Tell the truth of what actually was done. That Israel is the story that the Iranians are going after Israel. That Iran is launching a war against Israel is happening right now. Here is an example of it. It's not the war, the big wars. It's little wars. And with the alliance of terrorist organizations around the world, Hamas and Hezbollah and other, all designed by Iran, and all trying to support the Iranian opposed, that they are actually in a war against Israel.
You know, we are seeing that, you mentioned the Palestinians, but I really don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu, when he started speaking, when he was in the White House, and he got the message that this ship was captured, I don't think that he mentioned the Palestinians like he mentioned the fact that it's an Iranian shipment, like he mentioned the fact that, you see, this is what Iran is doing. He didn't say a lot Palestinians. I think that he meant more about Iran. And I think that focusing I don't know, you tell me, focusing all your PR on Iran maybe a little bit missing the point.
I think it is missing the point because I think most people, and certainly we've heard many times from people in the United States administration that if we can just solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, then all these problems with Iran and so on, you don't have to convince the world that Iran is at a war with Israel. Everybody knows that. But what everybody thinks is that it's because of the illegal occupation, and we don't stop to go on the offensive and to say, well, is the occupation really illegal? And what about the Palestinians? And what about the human rights abuse of the Palestinians? Again, they say Israel's an apartheid, Israel's racist, Israel's this. Well, the Palestinian Authority is racist, and the Palestinian leadership is carrying out war crimes, and it's a corrupt cartel. And we need to have our short messages that we convince the world it's not as simple as what you think.
But this is not a short message.
The question,
I have to say, what we've seen for the last few days, it's not a short message. It's a big message. It's actually showing mine is stronger than yours.
Which I don't think is necessarily the right track to take. And I think that by presenting us as this strong force in the Middle East, people already have that image of Israel. And I don't want, when somebody hears Israel, I don't want people to be thinking tanks, sophisticated missiles, walls, and all these defense things. I want people to think about the beauty of our democracy, the fact that we're the first country in the Middle East that gave women the right to vote, the fact that we have the freest printing press in the Middle East, the fact that we have more democracy in the Middle East, more freedom of expression, and I want that to be the image coming through when people are thinking about Israel.
It's not the image that it's coming through. I have to tell you that it feels that people are more talking about the childish game that Benjamin Netanyahu played in the last few days with putting on display his toys outside.
Yeah, this is a PR. Yes, no doubt that you're using a PR, but this is a true reality in the Middle East because these weapons could kill Israelis. These can actually change the situation on the ground for thousands of Israelis, because these weapons by Iran that is sent in, the Palestinians are being used by Iran just to attack Israel. This is another type of war. It's not the regular types of war that we knew in the film. This is a different type of war that tries to bring the war against Israelis back to the homes of every Israeli and using the I would say the whole network that Iran has of terrorist organizations around the Middle East and around the world to attack Israel. And now at least we exposed, let people around the world in the international community learn the true reality of this peaceful, loving nation called Iran. What are they actually doing? Here, they're developing weapons to kill Israelis. Even if they didn't declare a war against Israel, they're actually conducting that war.
But do you really think, gentlemen, that the world don't know that?
Well, I think number one, it knows that I think this, and number two, they're always going to come back and say, well, what about the Palestinians? Why aren't we making that connection? Why aren't we saying, everybody's demonstrating against the naval blockade we have in Gaza, but look what they're trying to bring in, and connect it all the time back to the issue of what about the Palestinians? Because at the end of the day, that's really what's hurting our PR more than anything else.
I'm trying. It's like I asked today the Fatah Palestinian official about what is exactly the problem about you putting the finger on the recognition of the Jewish state. So Israel asked the recognition for the Jewish state. Why you're not worrying about bigger things? And this is the same thing that I'm asking Israel. Okay, the whole world knows that the Iranians don't like Israel, that the Iranians wants to demolish Israel, that the Iranians are not that nice and their smiles are not that real. Do we really need to continue and put our finger on it?
I think it's important to remind the world that Iran
and not worry about some other things that we should worry about?
I think it is important to remind the world that Iran is a clear and present danger, but I think we always need to connect it back to the bigger issues that we have, because if the Palestinians I don't think it's fair to say the Palestinians, because there are some Palestinians that just want to mind their own business, live at peace with their neighbors within Israel. But there is a campaign today, a BDS campaign, to delegitimize the existence of the Jewish state. And right now they're winning the PR battle. And as long as they're winning the PR battle, we have to tie these major national events back to that issue, remind people why it's important that the Jewish state continues to exist, and present our case in a more convincing way.
Help me out here, because it seems that the Palestinians and the Israelis didn't pass the age of 6-year-old.
Yes, but you see, when you show the story of the ship and the weapons coming in, that creates a different situation that Israel faces now. Israel faces now a situation where people can get killed, that Israel is being threatened, and this is visible to the rest of the world. Now, of course, other events in the world put less, but the impact of the story that you see, the weapons, and it's not enough to do it once. You can do it time and again to show that there is a pattern here, that there is a strategy by Iran to attack Israel.
You know what?
And are doing it every now and then.
I will make your life a little bit harder. Do you think that if former president, late Prime Minister Ariel Sharon was alive, do you think that he will do this fiesta over this?
Well, I think perhaps he would do something that would change the situation on the ground. That people in the Arab world, not just Israel, but people in the Arab world, in Saudi Arabia, and they look around and they see, hey, wait a minute, we are having a real problem. Our real problem is not Israel. Our real problem is Iran. It's not Israel or the Palestinians.
Put the emphasis like Benjamin Netanyahu is putting the emphasis, because we remember Ariel Sharon being a general and a person who is seeing clear objects and clear direction that he went through. He wouldn't do such a big deal and such a big PR event over small.
You need the PR on the one hand.
Like
That's true. You need the PR on the one hand, but you also need the policy. In other words, you can't actually have the story of the ships and the weapons come to a lot, and not at the same time offer another thing to the Palestinian. I mean, it's both sides. You have to work on the one hand. That makes your threat more credible. Really, we have a problem. It's Iran. But listen, we are doing the best we can to solve the problem of the Palestinian at the same time. You have to do work on both sides. In other words, the same kind of things that you did try to show the world by showing the weapons that you captured that are a real threat to Israelis. You show, what are we offering the Palestinian? Is there something new, a new policy, a new thing that and that would put things together. On the one hand, the threats against Israel are real. On the other hand, we are willing
for peace.
Open a hand to the Palestinian to solve the problem.
Is Israel reaching for peace on the other hand?
I personally believe that Israel is reaching for peace a little bit further across the table than the Palestinians are reaching for peace right now, and I think that that's something that we need to state. The Arab League, for instance, just made a decision today that no, this is completely unacceptable to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. because that would disenfranchise the 5.5 million descendants of Palestinian refugees from their right to return to Israel. So these crazy ideas are still coming up, and it's still part of the mainstream dialogue of the Palestinian leadership, which I think is a major problem. And I think that our leadership is trying hard to find a peaceful solution. I'm not so convinced that we have a party on the other side of the table that's as motivated as we are. Let's say that. But I want to say that right now, what most people are getting overseas is that Israel is this powerful occupying force that stole the land from these poor Palestinians. So by going and proving what a wonderful, effective IDF we have at taking over an Iranian ship, I'm not sure that that's exactly the way to fight that image.
I am inviting you to see the interview that I did with Finance Minister Yair Lapid today. It's going to be aired in 2 days. And I'm inviting you to see what he had to say about the recognition of the Palestinians, about the Jewish state. It will be very interesting to you.
I look forward to that.
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to the studio today. We're going out for a small break, for 2 minutes break, and then we will be back for the I-24 News One-on-One, the news today. One-on-one, don't go anywhere.